Aurelia d'Amour was the kind of woman people whispered about long after she had walked past. Not just because she was breathtakingly beautiful, but because her very presence shifted the air in the room. She carried herself like a queen from another era, poised, calculated, untouchable. At 32, she owned 7 gold and tin companies spread across 3 continents, a global empire worth billions. Her reach extended beyond business. She had also purchased 7 private islands scattered across the Pacific, each one a sparkling gem of turquoise waters and untouched beaches. To outsiders, her life seemed like a perfect mosaic of wealth and power. Men dreamt of her, women admired her, rivals feared her. Yet, there was a strange truth that even her closest circle knew: Aurelia was alone. It wasn't for lack of suitors. Men had tried: movie stars, heirs to fortunes, politicians with promises of shared empires. But every single one had faltered, their confidence withering under the weight of her unshakable composure. She was too beautiful, too successful, too untouchable. In the glass tower of her Las Vegas headquarters, Aurelia's office reflected her personality. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the Strip, but inside, everything was precise. No stray papers, no meaningless decor. Her white silk blouse and tailored navy skirt seemed almost as crisp as her business decisions. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 8:17 a.m. Her morning meeting with the board would begin in 13 minutes. Already, she could hear the quiet shuffle of her assistant's heels outside, the subtle hum of tension that came before Aurelia entered any room. Her phone buzzed. A message from her CFO. Latest projections for island number SIXS mining potential attached. Review before flight tomorrow. She opened the file, scanning the numbers, her mind already calculating margins and risks. Aurelia's kindness, the part of her that wanted to help communities, to protect nature, was buried deep beneath the cold armor she had forged in the corporate battlefield. She had learned the hard way that softness was mistaken for weakness, and weakness was a luxury she could not afford. Her assistant, a nervous young man named Martin, peeked in. "Miss d'Amour, the board is ready." "Good. Let's not waste time." The boardroom was silent when she entered. Conversations died instantly, chairs straightened, eyes sharpened. Aurelia commanded the room without raising her voice. She moved through the agenda with surgical precision, dismantling half-baked proposals and demanding solutions that cut losses by the millions. Still, there were moments, fleeting ones, when her gaze drifted beyond the windows, to the horizon where the desert sky met the mountains. She imagined a different life, far from glass towers and balance sheets. But the thought never stayed long. By 10 a.m., the meeting was over. Another victory in her endless war for control. Aurelia returned to her office, heels clicking softly on marble floors, unaware that within days, her life would be shattered, her perfect armor broken. And the Queen of 7 Isles would find herself not in a boardroom, but stranded on the edge of the world, at the mercy of a man who had never heard of her name and didn't care for her crown. The next morning, Las Vegas glittered like a jeweled crown beneath the pale light of dawn. Aurelia's limousine rolled silently toward McCarran International's private terminal. She sat in the back seat, her posture perfect, eyes fixed on the glowing screen of her tablet. Contracts, mining reports, and shipping schedules, each a cog in the vast machinery of her empire. Her destination was Aurora Island, the 6th jewel in her private chain, located deep in the Pacific. It had been purchased 6 months earlier for its rumored mineral reserves and untouched beauty. Aurelia intended to inspect its operations personally, a rare move for a woman who usually delegated such travel to her most trusted executives. But something about this island pulled at her, though she couldn't quite name why. As she stepped from the car, the sleek white silhouette of her private Gulfstream G700 gleamed under the morning sun. The crew greeted her with professional smiles. "Good morning, Miss d'Amour," the captain said, tipping his cap. "Good morning, Captain. Let's keep this flight smooth. I have work to finish before we land." Inside, the cabin was a floating palace, cream leather seats, polished mahogany trim, and the faint scent of jasmine from her preferred diffuser. She settled in, crossing one long leg over the other, and opened her laptop. The engines roared to life, vibrating softly under her seat. The first 2 hours passed uneventfully. Aurelia typed notes on projected yields from Aurora Island's mining sites. She sipped black coffee, her eyes flicking occasionally to the endless ocean stretching beneath them. Then, at 32,000 feet, The plane lurched violently to one side. Her coffee cup toppled, hot liquid spilling across her papers. "Captain," she called sharply. No answer, only the low hum of the intercom, followed by static. The plane shuddered again. This time, the overhead lights flickered. A crackling voice finally came through. "Mr. Moore, we've lost both engines. I need you to remain calm and brace for impact." The words didn't seem real at first. Her hands gripped the armrests, nails digging into leather. The jet tilted nose down, and the windows filled with blue, sea and sky blending into one dizzying canvas. Papers flew like startled birds through the cabin. For the first time in years, Aurelia felt powerless. She could command men to move markets, could sign her name and shift millions across continents, but she could not command the laws of gravity. The captain's voice barked over the intercom again, strained now. "Brace! Brace! Brace!" She closed her eyes. Oddly, she didn't think of her companies, or her islands, or her titles. She thought of the horizon she sometimes stared at from her office, the one that made her heart ache without reason. Then, impact. A deafening roar of tearing metal. A blast of cold salt water. The world tumbled into chaos, and darkness swallowed her whole. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer in the air, no longer in her world of control. She was lying on coarse sand, waves lapping at her side, the sun blazing overhead. And a shadow, human, tall, and unfamiliar, fell across her face. The first thing Aurelia noticed was the sound, not the harsh roar of engines, but the rhythmic hush of waves kissing the shore. Her eyelids felt heavy, glued together by salt and exhaustion. The air was thick with the scent of the sea, mingled with something earthy. Would smoke, perhaps. When she forced her eyes open, she found herself inside a small hut, its walls woven from bamboo and palm leaves. Sunlight spilled through the gaps, casting shifting patterns across the sandy floor. Pain flooded her senses when she tried to move. A dull, throbbing ache radiated from her right leg, and her left arm felt wrapped in something stiff. She glanced down, splints. Crude, but secure. Someone had tended to her. Footsteps crunched outside. She tensed, unsure if she should call out. Then, the doorway darkened, and a man stepped in. He looked nothing like the polished executives or sharp-suited financiers who usually surrounded her. His skin was bronzed from years under the sun, his dark hair tousled by the wind. A white linen shirt hung loosely on his lean frame, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His eyes, warm amber, like honey caught in sunlight, studied her with quiet caution. "You're awake," he said, his voice low and calm, carrying a soft island lilt. "Good. Don't try to move yet. Your leg and arm are broken." Aurelia's instinctive reaction was to demand answers, to reassert control. "Where am I? Who are you?" "You're on Makana Island," he replied, kneeling beside her bed of woven mats. "My name is Kai." My plane." "I know," he interrupted gently. "I found you on the beach, barely breathing. You were lucky the tide didn't take you." She wanted to argue, to say she didn't believe in luck, only preparation and power. But the truth was, she had no power here. No phone. No boardroom. No control. Kai dipped a cloth into a bowl of water and wrung it out. His hands were strong yet careful as he pressed the cool fabric against her forehead. "You were unconscious for 2 days," he continued. "I've been changing your bandages, keeping the wounds clean." "Why?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. He looked at her, puzzled. "Because you're hurt. That's reason enough." No one had said something so simple to her in years, without a price, without an agenda. The wind outside shifted, bringing in the scent of the ocean. Kai adjusted her splints, his fingers brushing lightly against her skin. She flinched, not from pain, but from the unfamiliar sensation of someone touching her without calculation. "You should eat," he said, rising. "I'll bring fish stew. It's not the kind of food you're used to, I think, but it'll help you heal." She watched him leave, his silhouette framed by the brightness beyond the hut. For the first time since the crash, Aurelia felt something strange, not fear, but curiosity. And somewhere beneath the pain, a small ember of trust flickered to life. Days blurred into weeks on Makana Island. At first, Aurelia counted them in frustration, marking each one in her head as another day lost from her empire. She worried about board meetings, stock prices, hostile acquisitions. But the island had no clocks, and eventually, the rhythm of the waves began to erode her urgency. Kai visited her every morning, bringing food he had caught or gathered himself: grilled fish wrapped in banana leaves, fresh coconuts split open with a single stroke of his machete, sweet mangoes that dripped juice down her fingers. At first, she ate stiffly, murmuring clipped thank yous. But over time, their silences grew comfortable. When her strength returned enough to limp outside with a crutch Kai had carved, Aurelia began to explore the small curve of beach near the hut. The sand was warm under her bare feet. The horizon stretched endlessly, the ocean an ever-changing tapestry of blues and silvers. One afternoon, she watched Kai mend a fishing net in the shade of a palm. His hands moved with practiced ease, the same calm precision she used when signing billion-dollar deals. Except his work was not for profit, but for survival. "Why do you live here alone?" she asked. Kai's eyes stayed on the net. "I was born here. My parents passed away when I was 19. Others left for the mainland, but I stayed. The island, it's home. You've never wanted more?" He glanced up at her. More isn't always better. The simplicity of his answer disarmed her. In Las Vegas, no one ever believed they had enough. Deals were always bigger, stakes always higher. But here, the stakes were a fresh catch, a storm on the horizon, the health of the coconut trees. That night, Kai coaxed her outside to watch the stars. They lay on the sand, the Milky Way spilling across the sky in a sweep of silver dust. Aurelia realized she hadn't seen the stars this clearly in years. City lights always drowned them. Kai spoke quietly, as if not to disturb the night. "My father used to tell me each star is a guardian spirit, watching over us. When I was a boy, I'd try to guess which one belonged to me." She turned her head toward him. "Which one do you think it is now?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe I don't have just one anymore." His eyes lingered on her before returning to the sky. Something warm spread in her chest. It wasn't the kind of heat she felt in boardroom victories or during champagne toasts. This was softer, more dangerous, because it asked her to let go. The tide crept closer, lapping at their ankles. Aurelia didn't pull away. Neither did he. For the first time since her plane had fallen from the sky, she wondered if perhaps it had brought her exactly where she was meant to be. The morning began like any other. Aurelia was sitting on a smooth rock near the shoreline, her crutch lying beside her, watching Kai wade into the shallows to check the lobster traps. The sun hung low, casting a golden shimmer over the water. The peace felt almost eternal, until she heard it. The deep, mechanical thrum of an engine. Her heart jolted. No one came to Makana Island. The sound grew louder, and soon a sleek white motorboat cut across the horizon, its hull slicing through the turquoise waves. Two men stood aboard, both in pressed shirts and dark sunglasses. Kai noticed her tense expression and turned, squinting toward the approaching vessel. He came back to shore quickly, setting down his catch. "You know them." Aurelia's pulse quickened as the boat's nose hit the sand. The man who stepped out was tall, impeccably dressed even under the sweltering heat, with hair slicked back and a smirk that felt like a blade. She knew that smirk. "Damien," she breathed. Damien Roth, her former business partner, once the golden boy of Las Vegas corporate circles. They had started one of her earliest ventures together before his greed tore it apart. When she forced him out, he swore she'd regret it. "Well, well, the lost queen," Damien said, stepping forward. "Imagine my surprise when the search reports led me here. Thought you might have drowned, Aurelia. Would have been convenient." Kai moved subtly between them, his shoulders squared. "Who are you?" Damien glanced at him with open disdain. "Her rescuer, I assume? Or captor? Either way, you've enjoyed the company of someone who doesn't belong to you." "She's not yours either," Kai replied evenly. Aurelia's jaw tightened. "Damien, why are you here?" "Oh, I think you know." He slipped his sunglasses into his pocket. "The moment you vanished, your empire started bleeding. Board members panicked. Stockholders wanted answers. I stepped in to stabilize things. And now that I found you, I can make sure the board sees just how compromised you've become. Living here, with him." His eyes flicked toward Kai like a predator sizing up prey. "You wouldn't dare," Aurelia said coldly. "Wouldn't I? You've been gone for months, Aurelia. Your absence has consequences. Public image matters, and your little island romance isn't going to inspire investor confidence." That night, Aurelia overheard raised voices outside the hut. Damien's tone was sharp, Kai's steady but firm. "I'm offering you money, island boy," Damien sneered. "More than you'll ever see in your lifetime. Take it, disappear, and I'll take her home where she belongs." "She belongs where she chooses," Kai said. "And you think she'll choose you?" Damien's laugh was low and cruel. "She's a queen. You're nobody." A moment of silence passed before Kai answered, his voice quiet but unyielding. "Maybe. But at least I'm not trying to buy her." From her bed, Aurelia's fists clenched. She had fought ruthless men before, but this was different, because now it wasn't just her empire at stake. It was her heart. The days after Damien's arrival felt heavier, as if the air on Makana Island had thickened with tension. He didn't leave. Instead, he prowled the beach like a shark circling shallow waters, always watching Aurelia and Kai. When Kai went fishing, Damien would linger near the hut, dropping poison-laced remarks about the real world and the life she was throwing away. Aurelia ignored him at first, but one afternoon, she saw Kai return from the lagoon looking troubled. "What is it?" she asked. He hesitated, then said, "The boat. The one Damien came on. It's been tampered with. The fuel line's damaged. It won't make it far." Her eyes widened. "You think he—" "I know he did," Kai said grimly. "If there's a medical emergency or a storm hits, we'd be trapped here." The storm came sooner than either of them expected. By nightfall, the horizon had turned an ominous slate gray. Wind tore through the palms, and the once calm ocean began to churn. Damien's boat, tied loosely to the pier, slammed against the wooden posts, groaning under the strain. "We need to fix it," Kai said, already grabbing rope and tools. "You can't go out there," Aurelia protested, clutching his uninjured arm. "If we lose this boat, we lose our way off the island. And storms here, they can last for days. Supplies won't last that long." Before she could argue again, he pulled free, his expression resolute. "Stay inside. Lock the shutters." The rain came in sheets, blinding and relentless. Aurelia stood at the hut's doorway, heart pounding, watching him fight his way down the pier. Lightning split the sky, illuminating his silhouette as he lashed ropes and wrenched at the fuel line. The waves rose high enough to slap against his knees, threatening to pull him in. Damien emerged from the shadows, his voice a cruel whisper against the howl of the wind. "Let him drown, Aurelia. It's better this way. He's holding you back." She turned on him, her voice cutting through the storm. "Get out of my sight, Damien." Out on the pier, a massive wave hit, nearly sweeping Kai into the black water. Aurelia's breath caught, but he clung to the wood, dragging himself back to his knees. With one final effort, he secured the ropes, patched the line, and staggered toward shore. By the time he reached her, soaked to the bone and shivering violently, she was already running to him. She caught him just as his legs gave out, lowering him gently onto the sand. "You're insane," she whispered, tears mingling with the rain. "And you're worth it," he replied through chattering teeth. She pulled him close, feeling the frantic beat of his heart against hers. In that moment, she understood something terrifying and wonderful. This man, this island, had become home. Damien watched them from the shadows, his jaw clenched. He had lost something he couldn't buy back, and he knew it. The storm passed by dawn, leaving the island washed in a strange, golden calm. Palm fronds lay scattered across the beach, and the air smelled of salt and earth. Kai was still weak from the night before, sitting against the side of the hut with a blanket around his shoulders. Aurelia crouched beside him, checking his bandaged hand where splinters had embedded deep during the repairs. "You could have died," she murmured, her voice trembling with equal parts anger and relief. Kai met her gaze steadily. "If it meant keeping you safe, I'd do it again." Before Aurelia could reply, Damien appeared from behind the hut, looking far less polished than when he'd arrived. His shirt was wrinkled, hair unkempt, but his arrogance was intact. "Well," he drawled, "now that the heroics are over, let's talk about reality. Your empire is crumbling, Aurelia. The board is ready to replace you. If you don't come back now, alone, you'll lose everything you've built." Aurelia rose slowly, every inch of her radiating the authority that had made her untouchable in the corporate world. "You mean you'll lose your grip on what you've stolen?" Damien's smirk faltered. "Careful. Without me, those companies will survive just fine," she cut in. "I've been gone for months, Damien. And in that time, I've learned something. Gold and tin can be replaced. People who care about you can't." Kai looked at her, his expression unreadable. She stepped closer to Damien, her voice low but sharp as a blade. "You came here thinking you could scare me back into the world you control. But I'm not afraid of you. And when I do go back, it'll be to take back what's mine, and to see you face the law for the fraud you've been running while I was gone." His jaw tightened, but the sound of an approaching engine cut off his retort. From beyond the reef, a patrol vessel appeared, its white hull glinting in the morning sun. Aurelia turned toward it. "I called them during the storm. Satellite radio. They know everything." Two uniformed officers stepped off the boat, their eyes locking on Damien. One produced a set of handcuffs. "Damien Roth, you're under arrest for corporate fraud and obstruction of justice." Damien's protests were drowned out by the hum of the engine as they took him away. When the sound faded, Aurelia faced Kai. "Come with me," she said softly. "To Las Vegas. To anywhere you want. I don't care about the board, the headlines, the gossip. I just don't want to leave you behind." Kai hesitated. The island was his whole life. But then he looked at her, the woman who had arrived broken and cold, now standing with bare feet in the sand, her eyes warmer than the sun, and he nodded. "All right. But I'm keeping my fishing net." She laughed, the sound light and unguarded, and took his hand. Months later, under the flash of cameras on the Las Vegas Strip, Aurelia announced she was selling one of her companies to fund a foundation for isolated island communities. Reporters asked if this was the new Aurelia d'Amour. She only smiled, glancing at Kai beside her. "No. This is who I've been all along." And for the first time in her life, the untouchable queen let herself be touched, completely.